Hi, my name is Joshua Davila, also known as the Blockchain Socialist, name of my podcast and blog. I'm the co-founder of Bread Cooperative and the author of Blockchain Radicals, which is this book that came out in 2023.
Hi, George.
Hi.
Thanks for coming. Today, just for the context, we are in Berlin at Devcon, and we are doing this interview on the second day of the conference. For people who don't know you, can you tell a bit of your backstory? Like, how did you end up here where you are at this moment? Just like a few minutes of your background.
Sure. I guess it depends on how far you want me to go back.
Okay, so you have a few minutes at least. So
yeah. Maybe I'll start from, I got into crypto starting in 2017, a bit after or maybe 2016 when I was graduating college. And at the time, I got into crypto because I was really broke. I was, the first job I got out of college was just very poorly paid. I was doing Uber on the side as a driver to try to make extra cash to pay off the loan for the car that I bought to go to work. I was a graduate in neuroscience, and I thought that I could use my neuroscience degree as a way to make money off of biotech stocks, since they are quite volatile. And turns out I was really bad at trying to trade stocks. I never actually did it that much, but I did this stock trading game to try to get better at it, and I was just not liking it at all. But in my explorations of ways to make enough money to be able to pay my rent and my upcoming student loan debt, I came across cryptocurrency again. It was Ethereum was still quite new at the time, and I was also 2016, I was going through this political radicalization process where Trump was elected the first time. I witnessed the Democrats just kind of completely bulldoze Hillary Clinton forward as their primary or in the primaries to win that election against Bernie Sanders, who was, all intents and purposes, I think significantly more popular and significantly more able to defeat Trump at the time. And so I gravitated towards cryptocurrency, was reading a bunch of literature, political literature. I was really, the first time I had ever kind of felt that I read something that finally explained a lot of the issues that I found in the world was by reading socialist literature, was reading Marx, and it was the best explanation I could come across as to why the world was the way that it was. And at the same time, I'm learning very early Solidity in my free time. So I was thinking that smart contracts and DAOs are this incredible new technology that could facilitate a type of politics and a type of collectivity using real value in some way that was not possible before, and that could be useful for a socialist politics. And so I pursued that for a long time. I eventually got a corporate job, doing blockchain consulting. I started doing that. And, being in a corporate position for long enough, you kind of go crazy. It's hard to express.
You become socialist. Right? Very easy.
You become socialist very fast when you start working corporate. So it was just frustrated. I couldn't express the views that I had there, and I could not find any outlet that was also exploring and analyzing the crypto space from a left-wing point of view that I thought was reflective of the way crypto actually existed and what was interesting about it. And so I made the unfortunate decision to create the Blockchain Socialist name on Twitter and then start a blog and a podcast. I said, this is what I'm going to do now. I'm going to talk about this, because if I can't keep screaming at my roommates about it because they don't understand these things. And so, I started doing that for a couple of years. I was asked to write a book. And then I also started Bread Cooperative, which is a project that I co-founded with others who are working in the crypto space to try and build applications also from our political point of view. So from a post-capitalist point of view is the idea. So now I'm here.
Yeah, beautiful journey. A lot of questions, but also briefly, could you talk about Bread? How you've tackled it a bit, but how did you end up doing exactly this idea and executing this idea. And and why bread, actually? I love the name, but why?
So bread is a reference to The Conquest of Bread by Peter Kropotkin, anarchist writer, where he just writes, the conquest of bread is like our ability to conquer our basic needs, that the basic needs of everyone are met. It's a conquering of that. And that is when we can finally be human. Like only by having these basic needs met can we actually relate to each other in a way that is actually like non-hierarchical, whatever else. But so, yeah, the project basically came out of talking to a bunch of people who are in the Discord server that I started called Crypto Leftists, and started getting people who were working in the crypto space and were kind of like tired of only doing DeFi speculation stuff and wanted to build something more meaningful. And so like the first kind of problem then you come across when you want to start some sort of organization is like that is, how do you fund yourself? How do you, because we live in a capitalist world, we can't really change a lot of these basic facts. Where do we make money? And so the first application we created was called the Bread crowdstaking application, where basically you have a smart contract app where you give XDAI, which is on Gnosis Chain, and however much XDAI you get or you give is how much bread tokens you receive. So 5 XDAI is 5 bread, so it's pegged to the dollar. Because XDAI is pegged to the dollar, XDAI gets converted to SDAI, which is the DAI savings rate, so it's earning a yield for the cooperative. Then as a bread holder, you can vote on which projects you want to distribute the yield to. So it's always over-collateralized, it's always, safe from any type of bank run or something like that. And it's a way to fund something without going to venture capital or to receive investment necessarily, or that you need to ask for donations. So it was meant to be this kind of like some kind of middle way that we were able to find that had an alternative logic to it. And so, yeah, you can take part of that application. If you have XDAI, you can get bread and begin helping to fund the projects that you want to support. Probably because you're part of one of those communities, or you just like the overall objectives of trying to create some sort of alternative. The scope of the project, however, has expanded quite a lot to where we're kind of like a venture studio at the same time. So we have also products that we're creating that are just kind of purely technical, like products to scale Ethereum. So one of them is called Gas Killer. It's just an AVS on EigenLayer at the moment, where you can save on gas by running your function through the AVS. And so, yeah, basically what we found is that by offering an alternative to people who really are motivated to build things not because of profit, they're willing to like bring things to the cooperative to help fund a larger purpose than just themselves.
Yeah, it's a very beautiful purpose, and we as Web3 privacy, we kind of very aligned in this terms of like values. But can you please explain to people the concept of cooperative and like probably in the regional mean and like 100 years ago one and its implementation in crypto nowadays, and if there is any change. I believe there is. 100 years have passed at least. So,
yeah. So, a cooperative is essentially what's many things. You can view it as many things. I mean, the usual way you kind of view it is as a legal entity. Right? It's just like an alternative to an LLC or something like that. It's essentially where those. If we're talking about specifically worker cooperatives, it's simply a legal entity where workers are also owners of the business for the organization itself, and each of them have an equal vote and an equal share and say into how the business is run. Of course, you can have governance mechanisms inside of that and different ways you want to govern it, to where maybe people who have more experience have more say in some way, but they have, as far as an economic share or right, it's everyone has an equal amount. But yeah, you have other types of cooperatives like producer cooperatives or consumer cooperatives, basically that are run either by producers or consumers. It's a way of just kind of collectivizing resources in a way so that things are kind of collectively owned. This is a very old the type of entity and organization that's been around for a really long time. And it was the originally a socialist was someone who was in a cooperative, working in cooperatives in like England in the 1800s or maybe earlier, I forget. But so yeah, this you may be listening to this and being like, oh, that sounds a lot like DAOs, and that's kind of true. It's also a little bit more complicated because DAOs in the crypto space often have token governance, or the amount of tokens that you have is the amount of say that you have. But a lot of people in the imaginary of what DAOs are or should be or could become, they often look similar to cooperatives. It looks like, people coming together and equally sharing in the fruits of their labor and also mutualizing the risk. So rather than an LLC in which maybe stockholders of an elite group of people who hold the economic rights to extract profits from what is produced by the business, in a cooperative, or you're able to share those profits. And in a DAO, that kind of depends on, the token holders. It depends on various things. For me, originally, when I heard the term DAO, it was explained to me as imagine Uber, but without the Uber company. So, but at that time, it was libertarians telling me that. It was like people who are really into free markets, really into like the sovereign individual as being the reason as to why anything is productive, right? But they were kind of like sharing these very socialistic ideas. I don't necessarily think that they viewed it in that way or saw it that way. So a lot of my work has been around how we compare DAOs with cooperatives and how can they mimic each other more so, because I think the reason why many people are kind of maybe disillusioned by DAOs is that they actually didn't mimic cooperatives enough.
What's missing? What's missing?
I think knowledge and how to run like a cooperative. So I think part of the issue is that a lot of people came from startup environments, or like maybe management consulting or very corporate environments, which I did too, right? But those comes with like specific practices in how you work and how you resolve conflict. And in a cooperative, it's quite different whenever you're all kind of like in this equal footing type of place. In DAOs, it kind of became, people had to adhere to those who had a lot of tokens, more or less, because proposals could be passed by those who had a lot of tokens. So I think there is things missing around like the governance mechanisms in which they were using inside of their DAOs, a lot of it being kind of plutocratic, and as well probably conflict resolution strategies when you're in a more collective environment, because it's not the same when you're in a corporate one.
And then there goes another question. How do you shift yourself from this individual perspective? Because it's kind of a norm, right? Especially here, we are like in Western Europe. How can you kind of switch to this more collectivism form of like perception of the reality? Is there any, I don't know, tool, practice, habit you can kind of try on, like to try it like now?
First, just to understand the context is like you said, it's not normal. It's not the norm to understand how to act in a collective, and and it differs per culture. I think there's some who are a little bit better because it's more natural, maybe in the way that they relate to one another, just because of cultural norms. But generally, like the corporate environment is hierarchical and has specific roles that people play and domains that they take on, in which they have like specific interests in that don't necessarily work well in a more collective environment. So I'm a practitioner of something that's called micro solidarity. So it's just kind of like a working practice group where we work on how to do decentralized organizing or horizontal organizing. And basically it's a muscle to practice. It's really like not something that necessarily comes naturally to everyone, and it involves being a bit more, being able to express emotion in like a healthy way, and to be able to, and to also receive feedback in a healthy way. But I think the main thing is actually against the norms in crypto, actually, is that you need to have fairly high levels of trust within a working group. And that is what helps you make the foundation for how you can resolve conflict. If I know that others within my group are in it with me, that they like are also committed to this thing, and they, are not being facetious and playing like these types of mind games or power games with me because we're all in this together, then that completely changes the way in which I relate to them, right? Like if I know that like, this other guy, my manager, this guy I'm competing with for a promotion or something like that, that's going to dictate how I, my economic success, then I'm more willing to commit, like to not act pro-socially because it's intentionally competitive internally in a corporate environment. And so in a more cooperative one, it means taking a more cooperative stance in how you talk to people, how you resolve conflict, and also how it's really like, in part, it is a lot of talking. It is a lot about like developing trust with one another so that if there is a conflict, it's not something that kind of explodes or leads to, types of outcomes that don't benefit the collective. So I know that's like a little bit vague, but I'd recommend checking out Micro Solidarity, and they have a lot of like more practical, there's a whole list of different things. I mean, it's really, just having ways that you structure a conversation can make a huge difference in how you resolve a conflict.
Wow, that's actually very interesting, because for me, what you've said, it sounds more like being very empathetical, being very self-conscious, being very aware, and very on some level of, so for me it sounds like being like a lot into therapy and being conscious, which is interesting because therapy is very individualistic, and it teaches you like to kind of take care more about yourself, your needs, and the others. And that's interesting how like the same thing is kind of like very interconnected, but with a different purpose. Do you see that therapy might help here, or it's something that might lead you away on this path of like self-consciousness?
I say this, I don't know if I'm the best person to answer this question because I have not gone to therapy for things, but I have done a lot of like, types of therapeutic exercises in order to like get over certain things about myself and whatever else. But I mean, clearly for some people therapy works. For others, it doesn't work as much. I think for me, like I get a therapeutic relief being in a group of people that I trust, and being able to be honest and truthful with them. So I think that it's a case by case basis. It's really, I don't want to be someone to be like, everyone should have therapy or take therapy, but at least in terms of like a institutionalized practice of therapy, I think you can, I think there are ways to, also take an approach that you go yourself. That doesn't work for everyone though. So I think it's a very individualized thing.
Okay. So I really believe in this importance of like people or your tribe with shared values, where you can practice solidarity, where you can practice like cooperative thing. But how do you find those people? That's the question. Maybe you have an answer. Or maybe at least how you did find your crowd for that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was because I found a bunch of other nerds who were also really interested in the weird niche thing that I'm interested in. So yeah, it's kind of it for me. I think I was lucky that the thing that I was interested in also involved, in part, but not solely, an interest in how to embody decentralization, like how to do the practice with others. to do it. So yeah, I mean, for me, it was just being very open and honest about what I wanted, what I believed in. And then it was a big filter for bringing in people who also thought that as well. So, I didn't attract people who were, wanted to make a ton of money and extract as much as they can, because I was, vehemently kind of making fun of that stance, or going against it in many ways. But I think there are many ways to find them. I think this is also true. I think we see this even in religious associations, that, I'm not a religious person, but it's clear that a lot of people find community in religion and things like that. So it's something what I'm interested in is how do we take a lot of the good things that we see out of these maybe more traditional religious organizations, but maybe leave the things that we don't want and bring the things that we do want.
Okay. Another question. How do you deal with different cultures? Because we all, when we come together, it doesn't matter if we do something or we make a cooperative or union or whatever, people are really different, and especially they come from different cultures. They have very, very different approaches to things. So culturally, is there a way to bring really different people together in with the solidarity tools that may have a very, very different perspective on things? So is there an answer in here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a socialist, so I do believe in international solidarity. It is, and that requires dealing with the very practical types of conflicts that may arise just from misunderstandings due to cultural differences. I mean, for me, I think I'm fairly lucky in this, in that I grew up. There's this term called third culture kid. So I grew up in a country, but my parents are from a different country, and then I have moved to other countries. So I mean, I've had a lot of exposure to different cultures and different cultural norms that, at least for me, made it more normal to experience different cultures and different ways of thinking. But I think for me, the approach is really to stay open-minded to what people are saying. I think there's some very practical tips for conflict resolution that can also be useful in terms of ways that cultural differences are. I think the biggest thing is having a curiosity about maybe something feels strange to you in the way that they're presenting something. It's to ask them about it. It's to try to suppress maybe the immediate emotional response that you may have, because that seemed really offensive, what they said, or whatever else, but instead, and try to ask them about it to try to learn more about where they're coming from. But at least that's in a specific action space in a specific moment. But broadly, as a way to mitigate cultural differences, it's also to have curiosity in their culture. I mean, it's to ask them, what is the history that they're coming from? Were they different countries have different associations with particular words, with particular organizational groups, because of their history that for them seems totally normal, because they were colonized by this and that country, and they did this and that when they were colonized, or whatever else. So a type of cultural curiosity can really help in mitigating that. So just having the context of where your teammates are coming from.
Okay. But I have another question. What's for you to be a socialist, and what is socialism?
Yeah.
And it may seem simple for people, but the thing is, we all kind of talk about the same terms, but we all put very different meanings in that. If you ask 10 people what is decentralization, 10 different answers.
Yeah.
And so the same, what's your perspective of that?
Yeah, so I mean, for me, in the shortest terms as possible, the socialism is bringing democracy into the economy. It's bringing we already have democracy in the political sphere, but by and large, we don't have it in the economic sphere, right? We largely go to work for a bigger like corporation that is like very hierarchical, in which very few people at the top make the vast majority of the profits, and then sprinkle a little bit down to everyone else who have effectively no political or economic rights within the organization. So in many ways, we may be able to vote for our leaders every 4 or 5 years or whatever, but we have zero voice, democratic voice, in the places where we actually work, in the places that we are like very intimately economically tied up with. We have no say in by and large what we do with our national resources that we have available to us, right? There's like very few elite people that get to make the choices on how economic resources are used and how they're divvied up amongst the population, right? And I'm not saying that like, so socialism does not mean like give everything to everyone and then like whatever. It's about having power and control for the masses who actually produce the value with the resources that are around us. And so for me, like in relation to decentralization, just because you mentioned it, for me, capitalism is a giant centralization machine. Like capitalism is defined by private accumulation of profit, right? So if you are a shareholder in a company, you have the right to privately accumulate the profits that are being produced by your workers, right? Who are working for a wage. So no matter, there may be certain bonuses that give them more or less of a wage depending how well they do, but by and large, a lot of people don't. They simply get a wage based on the amount of hours they work or whatever else. And so capitalism is a giant centralization machine then that pushes capital up to the top to fewer and fewer hands because they begin to win in the markets. The more you win in the market, the easier it is to continue winning in the market. You even hear it in like the way people talk about like how to become a millionaire, how to become a billionaire, whatever. It's like once you get your first million, then you're good, right? Because then once you get your first million, you can make way more millions after that because it's like a snowball effect type of game. And so that's the type of thing that I think destroys actual democracy. It destroys like the reason why people are maybe feeling nihilistic about political institutions is by and large because even though we have this semblance of democracy where we vote every 4 or 5 years, but it doesn't actually matter, right? The same people are in power because they have the capital, and capital is basically it's essentially a governance token over where our resources get to go, right? If a billionaire wants to build a factory here to build widgets, then he just spends the capital in order to do it. And all of a sudden, all these people, all these resources start moving at their command, right? Like it is in many ways, it is command and control via capital. It's kind of what.
Yeah. Can you tell me more about the examples of the use of crypto, like to help people in need when it's kind of complicated to do that? So you had this example with Gaza. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, so I mean, I've done a lot of work with sending crypto to those in Gaza right now. So it's, obviously it's an incredibly intense situation over there. There is, at the moment, basically no aid or food that are coming through the borders right now because they're being blockaded. So there's very little food that is actually left, and that food is only food that you can buy on the market. So there's not very much, if any, kind of food or aid that's being dished out for free to people. But there's always been this market of food also there. And the kind of thing that's happening is that, Palestinians have always in Gaza hardly had much access to financial services, and it's always very difficult to send money into Gaza because of the amount of financial obstacles that Israel has placed on their banking system. And so with the start of this war and genocide, it's very difficult to get money through the bank accounts. And so crypto has become kind of one of the big ways that people receive money. And the way that it largely goes is that these are people who are not crypto native, obviously, a lot of them. They're simply trying to survive like the next day. And so they are effectively creating accounts on Binance, and they're receiving Tether on Tron. So that's the main currency that they use, USDT on Tron chain. This has been the norm in the Middle East for several years now. It is a bit of a, it kind of sucks as someone who's like, I'm more Ethereum aligned than Tron, of course. But that's, I think this is an artifact of Tron being significantly cheaper to use than Ethereum many years ago. So they have OTC desks where people can go and give USDT to receive cash so that they can purchase food in the market. And yeah, of course, there's a very high commission at the moment, especially in these times that are quite extreme. But that's the main way that they're able to get food. Usually for me, it involves receiving some sort of IBAN or payments through euros, perhaps, or other ways, and then just using crypto that I have and swapping it from whatever chain it is, because I don't hold anything on Tron, and just swapping it to USDT on Tron to go to their accounts on Binance, and then they go ahead and use it. So that's kind of like the main thing. When you're doing work like this, of course, we're very confident in who is on the other side of that payment, because it's someone they've been in contact with for quite some time. So we get updates from the various people and families that we're sponsoring. So part of this larger collective and group, also locally based in Berlin, that have done fundraisers, selling various things, and then they collect the cash. And then we have a funnel for getting the crypto to the person in Gaza in the end. So it involves a lot of, I'm interacting with a lot of people who know nothing about crypto, but they're using it because they have a specific need that they want to get, which is to send money to those that they're sponsoring in Gaza. And so many of those people have taken a larger interest in crypto because of that.
And yeah, maybe let's do on Solidarity primitives, but like really short one, and then we'll really attach a link to your like big talk around that. So yeah, can you explain like super briefly Solidarity primitives, and like if you want to expand more and dive deeper, we will put a link downstairs on your talk here in Devcon. Yeah, so it was it will be a link to Josh's talk in Devcon about that. But briefly.
Yeah, sure. So Solidarity primitives are just the techno-conceptual framework that I use for talking about how we build applications at Bread Cooperative. It's essentially taking the idea of financial primitives or DeFi primitives, or these building blocks for creating more complex financial products using DeFi. And instead of using these building blocks for creating and facilitating relationships of finance between people, so like individual like profit maximization, it's instead for facilitating relationships of solidarity, which is essentially the ability for people to create alternative mechanisms that don't rely on capitalistic relationships per se. And yeah, you can. I talked about it a whole lot more in video, so maybe I'll stop it there, so you can watch that.
Yep. Okay, and maybe you can name some cases of that are happening or about to happen, especially in crypto world, being like a syndicate or cooperative or something that you really like, and you feel that this is something that should be not a must, but it should be more here. Like implication of this like socialist idea, but on chain.
I think there's a lot of different threads to pull on. I think one of the maybe technical spaces that need to be, I mean, there is a lot of research in it, and I'm curious to see how it continues to develop, but identity is kind of like a big one. So right? By default on a blockchain, you can make as many accounts as you want. You can just spin wallets up here and there. And so if you wanted to have a kind of cooperative-like structure of one member, one vote, it's really hard to do because you can just like spin up 5 wallets and now you have 5 votes. And how's anyone going to know? You have to build in certain structures inside of it to ensure this association with your humanness and your vote. And this happens. The state does this because you get an identity card. You just prove that. And so I'm really curious to see how identity develops, because I mean, yeah, I do think that there's like a dystopian version of identity. Is like people are reasonably like worried about it. You can, if everybody knows who everyone is on chain, then you lose a lot of privacy. So there's therefore like the usual suspect of zero knowledge proofs and how it's used in identity is going to be an interesting one. And yeah, I guess, but so while that's happening, and there are various ways to kind of mitigate for that, if you want humanness as like a variable into how you're calculating input for some sort of vote or something like that, there's that. But also, I mean, the way that we do it at Bread and for the crowd staking application, when you vote, is we just have a 50-50 split where 50% of the yield is determined by the votes, and 50% is determined by an equal distribution. So we're just kind of not putting identity into our solution quite yet, because I mean, in part, just kind of waiting to see what comes out and what's good, and don't want to necessarily build our own solution and rather pick something else up. But also it's a way to embed solidarity within the way that we are doing our vote, because then we're going with the assumption that every project is doing something that's important. So every project is guaranteed some amount, but there is this variable 50% that can, maybe you get nothing because no one voted for you, or you get everything because everyone voted for you. So that's kind of like how we're dealing with that problem. And then there's like, I think a ton of different just like voting mechanisms that I'm excited to see more experimentation with. So I mean, quadratic voting is like the usual one that we've done a lot with in crypto, and especially around funding with Gitcoin. Conviction voting is very interesting, where it's based on your the amount of time that you put your votes at a particular spot. So the longer you leave it, the more it accumulates. Yeah, and then things with liquid democracy, I think, are super interesting. All of these various experimentations are ones that I'm interested in keeping up with and seeing how they develop, and think they would be interesting in some sort of post-capitalist solution for how we manage shared resources.
Okay, and you've tackled it a bit as privacy, but if to focus more on that angle and that perspective, the intersection between privacy and like future solidarity, cooperative entities, how important is that, the privacy in general, and like what is the intersection between, let's say, socialism on chain and privacy?
I mean, yes, it's obviously super relevant. There is, I mean, the kind of pitch that I usually give around the use of crypto in the first place for a lot of the like non-crypto people on the left that I talk to is that if you're actually going to challenge capitalist institutions like seriously, then you need a risk mitigation strategy to some degree, right? Like the first thing that they're going to do is they're going to cut you off from your bank account. Right? It's like we saw that with WikiLeaks. We see that in various cases for those who were doing a lot of activism around Palestine. Like it's nothing for the government to say, yeah, sorry, can you block their bank account for a bit? And just like create these types of friction points that can be really difficult if you're, living in a capitalist world where you have to pay rent and all these things, and you're holding your money in a bank account because you don't want to hold it in your mattress. So crypto is a way to kind of mitigate that risk, to where at least if you hold some of that, you can get around state actors. And then the next kind of also danger is that then state actors begin tracking everything that's on chain, and they know where your identity is, and then they can track where the money that you're spending for maybe doing something that is, in a legal gray zone, what you're doing with it. And so that's, for me, why privacy is largely important in that type of context. But also, right now, the internet is a giant surveillance machine. It's just privately owned. Mm-hmm. People may not think of it as, I think people kind of sometimes underestimate the way that private entities are actually the ones that are doing the actual surveillance. Not necessarily the NSA, of course, like Edward Snowden did reveal like crazy amounts of surveillance via their programs, but it was in partnership with a lot of private actors. Yeah. And so, we've created an internet where that people, better or worse, they expect a lot of things for free. What is the thing that you make money on when you are a VC-backed tech company that has all of these people's user data? Right? You sell it. I mean, that's what else are you going to do? That's the way that the market has been structured. And so, yeah, I mean, to destroy, and just, this has caused several side effects as to, because all these private actors have all of this data and what they do with it. And it's also like we've just kind of, at the same time, I mean, it's been normalized even before the internet, but we've normalized kind of like corporate gaslighting in the form of advertising. It is essentially a mechanism for behavioral change, right? Like marketers are people trying to influence you to buy things. They want to make you do a specific action around consumption and purchasing. And so the same tools that do that are also the same tools that are encouraging, genocides in Myanmar. Like there was that case with Facebook not too long ago. So yeah, I mean, I think all these things just kind of point to a need for some sort of accountability from these large actors. And the only way we can hold them accountable in some ways to fight them economically and privacy and not giving them the thing that they actually sell is that's our chess piece that we play so that they can't continue to profit off of our backs and to keep facilitating the system of surveillance that people forget is largely privately run.
I just realized during this discussion with you that it's interesting, like we talk about it, but I feel that all of us are in a little bit in like this echo chamber or in a bubble of like being like politically active or conscious and this like activism, political narrative. But then there is a question, there are so many people who are on chain, but they're very apolitical. So let's say Degens, right?
Yeah.
Probably sure. They will never look at this interview, unfortunately. No judgment to Degens. I mean, so many people who are really big in the space now, they came through trading stuff, right?
Maybe if we say something really offensive, crazy, they'll come.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a stage, right? You can't be like Marx from what,
Of course. Just I was not that.
Yeah. So it takes some time, but then there was a question: how can we let's say transform Degens into more like politically conscious people? And is there a way? And is it even possible?
I mean, it's not going to be possible for everyone. I think it's of course, it really depends on, I mean, from the individual perspective, it depends on the journey that they're on at that moment, what stage are they on it, and whether they're open to hearing something new. But I think the way that it's been done historically, by and large, is by speaking to people's economic needs. So, labor unions were like a big politicizing force in many societies and countries. I mean, when you experience the feeling of being able to fight for your own interests with others collectively, it is like a enlightening experience. It's like, you're like, wow, I am a part of this like bigger thing and we're all like achieving something together. But by and large, labor unions have been like either destroyed or hurt severely in a way that they don't hold nearly as much power as they used to. And there are, of course, like good unions and bad unions within that whole story arc. But yeah, I think degens are probably, many of them, people who feel some sort of economic insecurity, some sort of economic anxiety. Because yeah, it is true that like, I mean, plenty of people don't believe that they're going to be able to retire. Like we're looking at like an economic future where inequality is only going to increase. Like your ability to be able to provide for you and your family is decreasing. And there doesn't seem to be too many political actors and political forces that are wanting to reverse that change. Besides maybe some sort of like, only through some sort of strongman politics or like effectively fascism of, I mean, that's effectively what fascism often is like the blaming of particular ethnic or minority groups to, you know, kick them out or to kill them in some way and to take the economic surplus from their disappearing, right? And so I think speaking to their economic needs and trying to share ways in which we can collectivize these efforts, because I think if given the choice, you know, if you had the choice of like, do you want to solo trying to make as much money as you can, screwing everybody else so that you ensure that you are going to be able to retire and have an economically safe life in the future? Or would you rather do that with others that you trust that can achieve that, and together you will feel like economically safe and move towards some sort of collective goals? Most people would pick the second, I think, right? If they believe that we're a possibility. So I think the way to do it is to make that possibility feel real.
So, okay, imagine it's 30 years from now and we won. So we have the internet that we all dream of. So full of cooperatives, it's like socialist, it's private, it's secure. How would it look like, and how would life look like in this like techno paradise?
That's a good question. I mean, I think there's like, I can't tell you hyper specifically what that necessarily looks like, but I have some feelings that just generally technology and the internet is used in a way that benefits the masses rather than enriches a few. Like, you know, is Facebook designed in a way for our collective well-being? No. I mean, like, I think that's an easy one, right? And the reason is because we allow them to exist. Like, we allow them to continue their practices. They don't get in trouble for anything that they do, apparently. And so I think the internet looks like one that doesn't have these types of privately owned infrastructures that people associate with the internet right now. Like right now, for a lot of people, the internet is Google, Facebook. It is, you know, FANG companies, because that's the first thing that they interact with when going on the internet. So for me, I think it involves significantly more open APIs or standardizations within it, to where people are able to make, at the very least, like their own solutions or their own types of infrastructures that are catering to the needs of their community and like their people. And so having a social media right now is kind of a bad word, or it's kind of like people generally dislike it, and so do I. I think I still have a sliver of hope that social media can be done well, actually, that you can, that people do want to stay connected. There are reasons why people use social media, and we can create it in a way to where it's something that is like enhancing our lives and like giving us something more to help us connect with other people that maybe we can't in a specific way, or it's simply, you know, a dashboard or a forum that we're using for collectively running our community and finding and getting input, deriving input from others that are in our community. Like, I think that for me, it's facilitating democracy towards completely normal to like take part in institutions that are around you, that I can go around and maybe like scan a thing on my phone and it's, you know, giving me a vote on what type of art that I would like to see on this wall because the community has been running a thing and they're going to commission some art piece, or that like, you know, I can put a little bit of a complaint because in the park there was the bench is broken and no one fixed it yet, and like, you know, these types of things that allow for a kind of collective intelligence. That's ultimately what I think the internet should be used for, is like collective intelligence for benefiting the masses. Yeah, I don't know if that's a...
Yeah,
is that a nice
sounds
picture?
beautiful. Yeah, why not? I mean,
Nice.
it sounds like a good future. I don't mind. Yeah, I think we can round up here, and maybe the final question of me will be some book, maybe not a book, just some cultural piece, film, podcast, whatever that you would recommend. Besides your book, let's start with your book. So please buy the book. How can I buy the book if I'm watching this interview like lately?
Just look up Blockchain Radicals. It should be
Very good.
more or less there. It's on, I mean, it's on, you know, not that I condone them, but it's on Amazon. It's on most of the Repeater Books is the name of the publisher. So you can also buy it directly from the publisher, but they're based in the UK. So it depends on the country. Maybe if you go, I have a Linktree. So Linktree/Blockchain Radicals. There are some, for some of the countries that I know that have specific platforms, I found some of the places where you can buy from as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, shouldn't be too hard.
If you're
also audiobooks, ebooks. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're interested to explore more of Josh's ideas, please buy a book. Haven't read it yet, but I believe it's quite cool. I would love to, at least. Yeah, and like your piece of recommendation, something that would allow people to like, for someone who is not familiar with socialism at all, just like to get the basic understanding of that. But also, I would avoid recommending classics because it's too tough for entrance, you know, like starting with Bakunin, Kropotkin, Marx, whatever. It might be a bit too much, but maybe something more lightweight. Yeah.
So not books then.
101. It can be anything, any piece of culture that you see might like help people to like feel a bit like what's that, why it's important in like easy to digest way.
Yeah, I mean, okay, if you are willing to read a classic, I would say the classic for me when I was, you know, skeptical and trying to read more about it and try to understand what socialism actually is, was Friedrich Engels' Scientific versus Utopian Socialism. I think Engels is actually one of the easier writers of, as far as the classics go. But if you're someone who's more into like video content, maybe there is a channel called Democracy at Work. So, what's his name? Richard Wolff, I think, is like a pretty good starting point for people who want to learn more about what socialism is. He's a professor. He's really good at explaining lots of different concepts. He's also a big advocate for cooperatives as like a practical thing for people to pursue in order to build a type of socialism. I mean, you can think of cooperatives as effectively like an island of socialism within an ocean of capitalism, more or less. So yeah, Democracy at Work is the name of this channel. The professor is called Richard Wolff, 2 Fs. I recommend checking him out.
Okay, thank you. So thank you for this beautiful interview.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for watching it. Ciao.